So here's the charge for the working sessions. And just to be clear, you've all been assigned one of 8 groups. Those groups are associated with one of the 5 themes of this summit. And again, at the very end, I'll show you again which group, which theme you're part of, where you're going to go, and who's going to be your moderator and rapporteur. These groups are going to stay together for the next 2 working sessions this afternoon, and the working sessions are going to work through a set of questions and pointers specific to the theme of the particular group that you're part of. Now, before you get scared when you see the questions that you're going to be asked, I just wanted to make a point about making it clear that there is no need to worry, okay? This group of people is about the most impressive group of Arctic experts that I've seen congregate in one room. And so all of us, including the organizing committee, we're confident that you will be able to navigate through some of the shallows, some of the straits, and some of the more open expanses here in the meeting without any problem. And ultimately, I think the goal here is, if this goes well, and I started off on a light note, but I guess I want to make it clear that we, as in the organizing committee, are serious about this. If this goes well, 20 years down the line, somebody's going to ask you, oh, you were part of the first Arctic Observing Summit? Were you part of that group that put down everything? Exactly. Bruce has got the idea. And of course, what we don't want is that 20 years down the line, somebody's going to come to you and go, you were part of the first Observing Summit. So it's in your power. And in order to get the first response and not the second, there's 3 things that we want to share with you, and those really are important. First of all, there may be times where the group that you're part of or a subset of that group may ask, well, what are we driving at here? The key point there is that during the summit, we want to focus on the urgent, on the actionable, and on the achievable. It'll be easy to get sidetracked. It'll be easy to identify gaps and then fall into those gaps and spend precious time discussing about, do we need observation X, or should we consider program Y, or what about funding agency Z? If you identify things that are genuinely missing from the white papers, from the breadth of the discussion that we're trying to have here, flag them, identify them, indicate whether they need to be taken up as urgent items at the next summit a year from now, or in some other form. We will not lose track of those, but we cannot afford at this meeting to spend time discussing things that do not lead to actionable outcomes. And actionable literally means that in the best of all worlds, some of the people in the room here have access to funding resources, speak for specific communities or organizations. In the best of all cases, you actually may already want to gather in the evenings or over lunch or whatever in the next few days and hash out how you could act on some of the recommendations coming out of the summit. That's important. And the third point is to also recognize that this is a process. So we don't know what works. To some extent, this is an experiment, and again, this group of people is about the best group of people that you want to be part of for such an experiment. But at the same time, as you've heard, SEAON is committed, and IASC and ISAC, to continue this in the form of a process so that if you do identify things that need to be taken up later, they will be taken up later. There is an opportunity to do that, okay? So again, it's lunch. People are sitting here sort of reading all this stuff. So here's a visual reminder of what we're trying to achieve here. This is, I should ask one of the botanists. I guess it's Dryas octopetala, the 8-petaled Dryas flower. And for each one of the petals, you can actually see we have something represented in the room. So first of all, what we're looking at is the intersection of those 8 labels that you see there, we're looking at the intersection of the urgent, the actionable, and the achievable. If it's just one or two of those, don't worry about it. Let's not put that on the high priority list of things to discuss at this summit. And at the same time, we're also looking for the intersection of a lot of the different people who care about Arctic observations that we have at this meeting, whether it's indigenous peoples, organizations, representatives, or indigenous residents of the Arctic, academia, NGOs, the private sector, or agencies. So ultimately, what we want is to end up at the center of this beautiful flower here. So now the question is, what is the specific charge for the next two sessions here? So again, here's a reminder. Here are the 5 different themes, and shown already here are the different groups who are assigned these themes. So depending on which group you're part of, that particular theme is what you will focus on. And to sort of be a bit more specific, we've talked about intersection of different achievable, urgent, and actionable items. Let's just take a specific example. Let's talk about, let's say you're a member of Group 3, Observing System Design and Coordination. Early this morning, we heard about the fact that industry is in fact ready and already starting to think about how can we use existing assets as observing tools. You've heard a lot about concerns and interests at the community level about what types of observations are needed. You've heard a lot about how the scientific community has thought about how to best design an observing network, but you've also heard about the fact that these elements are disjunct. If you can identify as part of your group a project that would help advance better linkage and coordination between those different groups, that might be one thing of value to concentrate in your breakout group. And there are specific examples. I mean, you've heard Paul Haltus talk about this. The Canadian Arctic Net program has a good history of working with both Arctic residents and the private sector. So using those as stepping stones, but being more bold in coming up, ideally, of course, what we'd like to have is walk out of this meeting with already some commitments made, let's say by the private sector, to say, hey, here's what we're going to contribute to an Arctic observing network in that context. But this group has it in their power to advance those issues as much as possible. So now, I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about the specific charges and specific questions. So the first work session starts right after we're done here. You'll go to your room and you'll work on prioritization, essentially. And if you should all now have actually a hard copy of the of what I'm showing you here, so you can review that. Each breakout group will have hard copies of the relevant white papers for your theme, and each breakout group moderator also has been emailed the slides from this morning's synthesis presentations, and they should also be on the website here very soon. We've gotten great help for the website from the ArcticNet team, and appreciate them being so quick on their toes in helping with this. So prioritization is the topic of session 1, and again, you see here identify a subset of tractable issues that the 2013 summit will develop into recommendations. Think about clear goals and a defined path. Think about what do you want to see come out of this? I mean, what would be a great outcome, and then how are we going to get there? That's going to be important. Now, to help with this, here's a set of questions that have been posed that your group will work through to get there. Now, I want to make it clear, these questions don't necessarily apply to all of the issues that you've identified. If your group agrees there's one urgent, actionable, and sort of overarching and achievable topic that you can address, then it would be very helpful to collect as much information on questions such as, do the white papers actually reflect this particular issue that you've identified? And then, in particular here, prioritize your recommendations. And keep in mind for prioritization that, of course, timescales matter, the scope matters, or the spatial scale, and think about what you want to hand off to the Observing Summit next year as in follow-up activities or a review or an actual implementation. Now, if you, again, these questions really are meant to guide the conversations in the groups. If for some reason you get hung up with question 3B or whatever it may be, don't worry about it. The key thing is to come out with actual products here. I mean, this has been thought through very well and should help you, but if you find that at some point the detail in here is not quite as helpful as you'd like it to be, but you know what you want to achieve, just go for that. So that is working session 1. Later in the afternoon, there's going to be a break, and then your same group will convene for working session 2. And working session 2 builds on session 1, and that now identifies issues that face international collaboration and coordination of Arctic observing activities. And again, now you can already use the conversation of session 1 to focus your discussion and your thoughts. And ideally, of course, you would want to be very specific about how these challenges can be addressed at the international level. And again, the group of people here is the right group of people to do that. Again, there's a set of 5 steps or 5 questions that are going to help you with that. I'm not going to read those here. You can do that yourself. And again, if by the time you get to 3 or 4, you find, oh, you know, this is just about, does it for us? You know, let's do something to make sure we come out with a good product out of this work session. That's okay as well. So, having said that, I think now is a good time to just take brief questions before we actually go out and convene in smaller groups. Any questions with regards to the process? Anything else? I see there's thumbs up being given here by 2 people in the room. That's good. So this sounds like in general people have a rough idea. Let's see how this works out. Several of us will be rotating through the rooms as well, so if there's questions or concerns that come up as you're discussing this. And also, again, we made sure that the members of the organizing committee are spread out throughout these different groups, so that there should be somebody in your group who can provide additional guidance or feedback. So then, final point is, again, just make sure you know which group you've been assigned to, and maybe if I could just briefly, for those of you who are unsure who's actually moderating or leading your group, if I could just ask for group 1, Peter Schlosser, if you could briefly get up, identify yourself so people know. You're actually going to stay in here, so Region CC, you're not going to have to move. Group 2, I'm serving as the moderator. We're going to have to go next door. Group 3 is going to be led by Bruce Forbes. Bruce, if you could just briefly identify yourself. That's going to be Region CF. Then we have Group 4, sorry, that was Group 3, Group 4, Observing System Design, Leif Andersson, hard to miss. Group 5, we have the stakeholders, that's led by Gus Shaver. Gus, back there. Group 6 is Martin Jakobsen. You've already seen Martin earlier this morning. Group 7, funding, that's Agnieszka Byczynska. Agnieszka, if you could briefly introduce yourself, that's great. And Group 8 is Craig Lee, Data, who's going to lead that. All right, so the idea is you'll spend time in your breakout groups. When you take the coffee break and how you spend time on session 1 and session 2 is at some level, discretion of the group itself. You can decide to some extent, don't run up against the final deadline today, because of course at the end of the day we're all going to reconvene in here at 4:30, is that correct? For a brief report out from those 2 sessions. So at 4:30 we're going to meet here, and the reports are going to be very brief. So again, the key point is each group is going to get 2 minutes, and if you need to show a slide, it'll be 1 slide, not more, because it'll just be to share the findings from your group address any questions, not discuss the finding, but rather just if you don't understand a certain piece, you can ask questions about that. But then we'll actually revisit all of these points in later work sessions tomorrow and Thursday. So there'll be plenty of time to discuss those. Great, thanks, and we'll see you in a few hours. Mary Beth, there's a quick question announcement here.